going to move now to the section where if you want to color it to be something like what I did here. And once you've colored pictures, it's kind of hard to leave them just as a pencil drawing. But it can be neat as a pencil drawing too. So, let's get your picture out now. To me, the hardest step that you do next is the inking of your picture. I like to outline all of this with a pen. It somehow makes your edges a little sharper, and you have that little black edge around everything. And this is your next step. So you will need to find you a pen, and you need a pen that doesn't smear a lot when you use markers or paint, depending on what you're using. Now, a Sharpie pen works well. I also like to use this one, but I won't say it works well because many times it will smear. You get very good at working around the pen marks so they don't smear. And I will show you how to do that when we get into it, because I unthinkingly picked this pencil up that smears when I inked this picture, but I wanted to put markers on it. So there is a kind of a technique you can do. I didn't smear too bad in this one because I've kind of learned how to take care of that. I've done it so much. And I'll show you the trick. But since I know, I'm going to use a Sharpie marker. Now, you know there's these little skinny markers that are Sharpie, and there's the big fat ones. It depends on what size a line you want around here, which size is a pen. So you'll want to be sure and draw on paper. And I could show you that, except I don't have my black pen here. Well, I could show you with a different color. Now, see this little Sharpie marker? It's going to make a line like this. If you use your big fat black Sharpie, now I don't have my black one. I'm going to use my red one. See how much fatter the line is? If you like the fat line, that's fine. Use your big black one. If you like the skinny line, you'll need what it calls a, well, it doesn't say right, fine Sharpie. So I'm going to start that now. I'll show you one or two, and then we'll either speed it up or I will just come back when this is done, because this is going to take a while. If I do a good job, you very slowly with your pen go over your pencil lines. And really, this is just, it's drawing it again. And it can be frustrating because it takes a while. Just like that, over every line. And a lot of your artists, especially your ones that draw, like Disney artists and things, or coloring books, you see this black line. All art doesn't require this. It depends on the type of art you're doing. But a lot of artists spend a lot of time inking their pictures. And I like the look, but I get very impatient when I'm inking. And sometimes I start making mistakes. So, I'm going to speed it up here. And you work on inking, and then we'll get back together when we're done. How's that? Okay, we're done inking. Well, almost, not quite. There's a couple more things we need to do. And there's a couple things I should have mentioned probably before you started, but you'll know this for the next time or for this time. Remember, it's your ink lines that will be your finished picture. You're going to erase your pencil lines. So if you come along and there was something you wanted to change, it's okay, like here. Let's see if you can see this. My pencil line went down here, but I inked my line here. And that's okay that I didn't follow my pencil line because this will be erased. It's my ink line that will stay. Or what if, just because it happens that way, and it does that a lot for me, when I inked this line, I accidentally didn't follow my pencil line. But you know what? That's okay because this looks fine and I will be erasing that line. Now, again, as I said, you want to go slow when you ink and do as good a job as you can. But look here. Again, I did a little rounder, smoother curve rather than what my pencil line was. My ink line is the one that's staying. This pencil line will go away. Okay, now that we're at this stage, there's one more thing. If there's anything in this picture you want to be black or very dark, whatever color pen you're using, we need to fill that in now. And where I want it to be dark is the center of the centers. I want to make it dark around these little circles I put in. So I'm going to ink that in with my black pen. Now if you have a real fat Sharpie, the Sharpie that's bigger than this, you might want to get you the fine line Sharpie to do this part because these little spaces, some of them are quite small and hard to get into. And it can be hard with the bigger, fatter Sharpie. But, hey, feel free to give it a try. You may be even and steady enough to get by with it. Everybody's different. And I'm getting old and have unsteady hands. You see now how I inked around those little circles? Now I can either color them a bright yellow or put glitter in there or sparkles or whatever I want. Now I'm going to go down and do this other one before I quit this part, this inking stage. And do the same thing. Now it's a little scarier to me with ink because ink is what stays. It's hard to get rid of ink. Where my pencil, I get to erase it. And sometimes when you make a mistake, after you made the mistake, you have to figure a way to fix it. I made a mistake. Let's see if it's on this. It wasn't on, no, it was on another one. I made a mistake on one I was doing just the other day where I made a terrible, horrible line right in the middle of my good picture, and I had done a lot of work on it. But you know what? There are ways to fix things. This was a darker line. But if you have white paint, you come in and dab a little white paint on that line and it goes right away. So there's always, not always, but a lot of times there's ways to fix your pictures. Never give up. Now we've inked, but my picture here, I don't, it just looks kind of grungy and dirty. It's dirty. Now if you're like me, I bet you have pencil on the side of your hand from doing this. It's dirty because the smeared pencil. So we need to erase and clean our piece of paper up. Oh, and there's one other thing I wanted to mention about the inking. If you have a nice juicy ink pen, now this one is pretty good. You want to be careful about rubbing your hand over the ink when it was just put down because you may make this great big smear. I don't know if I can make this one smear. If I just drew it and went like that, look at that smear, and you can't get that off. It looks awful on your picture. Now, sometimes you can paint over it. So, really, and I didn't follow it too well if you'd have watched me because this pen's hard to smear. Start on, if you're right-handed, start inking on the left side and move this way. Or start inking at the top and move down. But don't start inking over here and rub your hand over it as you're going this way. Although, looking at what I was doing, I did it somewhat, but I didn't touch my hand to the paper over here. if you're going to do that, be sure that your hand's not smearing your ink. And the same for a lot of your markers and paints. So something to keep in mind is to not smear. And if it gets really hard and you're not sure, lay a piece of paper. If you did this, you weren't thinking and you did this and you have to move this way, lay a piece of paper over it and then move over here to do your inking. And you can even do that with your pencil drawing if you want, and then it keeps your hand a little cleaner. Mine's really dirty. Okay, next step, erase. I got my big eraser here for this job. I actually want to go over the whole page and clean it up. I want to get rid of all those pencil lines that don't agree with my pen lines anymore. So here we go. One thing, it's easy to make your paper go shush while you're doing this and tear it or wrinkle it. So hold it down nice and strong and be sure you're not being so rough with your paper. You're going to bend it and ruin all your artwork. I have actually done that and it made me quite sad. So I've learned the hard way to hold it down nice and snug where I'm erasing so I don't bend my paper. Because once you get to this stage of a drawing, you get kind of attached to it. You don't want to do it over. Goodness, and ruin it. So just be a little careful while you're doing this, while you're cleaning, because you have to scrub pretty good with those erasers to get all your lines off. Now, I drew a little darker than you probably did too, which makes mine a little harder to get off. See, again, erasing is good. Okay, be careful when you get rid of all your little eraser things. Again, you don't smear your work. Kind of shake it off and then you can get some of it. Now, after you've erased, you're probably going to find some places where your ink lines didn't go all the way because the pencil line kind of covered up that you missed them. And this is a good point, a good time to go in and fix those places that aren't quite right. When your ink first goes on, it'll look a little darker, but it should be fine when it dries. Okay, let's see. Thought I saw another spot or two where things weren't meeting. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. And then you might even find again some spots you didn't get erased. But remember what I said before. Take your time. If this picture takes you a week, that's no problem. You might get it done in a day, but then you might only have 10 minutes to work on it today and 10 minutes tomorrow and 5 minutes the next day. Just keep working on it as you can and it'll get done. That being said, if you can draw more, it's good. It's like playing an instrument. The more you work on it, the easier it will get. Okay, we have it inked. The next thing we're going to do is add some color to this. Now, you can use any color you want. I'll tell you what colors I used, but you use whatever you want. This outside part, in Sharpies, if you notice, they don't write a color name on their pens. Now, I know there are names for them because sometimes when you buy the sets, it will say what colors are in it, but I don't remember. But actually, this is just plain old good old red. It's the red that comes in most sets. And I've tried to keep the colors to what you can get in the smaller sets. There's all kinds of colors of Sharpies, and it seems like you never see them all at once in any one store. Once in a while, they'll sell this set, or they'll sell that set, or they'll sell a holiday set. And I try to nab all the different sets. That way I get a lot of different colors because at least there's at least around 36 to 40 different colors of Sharpies, but you're not likely to find a set where you get them all at once. But anyway, this is my red. And I'm going to go around And I'm so used to doing this. Now, I told you about smearing your black ink. And if you have an ink pen that smears, and I'd suggest you test it on another piece of paper so you know. And if it is, I like to go in and make a line with my color right next to the ink line. Now, this takes some time, but it will save your picture from smearing. All the way around, not over the ink any more than I can help it, but right next to it. Instead of going over it and drawing over it, which makes it smear, I'm making kind of a barrier line there. And this takes a lot longer. That's where it's quicker if you have a pen that's not going to smear on you, because if it will, and I kind of do this anyway, I'm so used to needing to do that I do it when I don't need to. And so you have a single line around that. Now, you want this to look smooth. I'm going to show you something over here on this. How to use your Sharpie and make it a very smooth background. Most people will just take something and color it in like this. See how I'm doing? But do you also see that that's very messy looking? And look at all these lines. Even if you color them in, you still have a piece of work here that has a lot of lines in it, ugly lines. Once you've made your outline and you're filling in, don't do lines. Do tiny little circles. And this takes longer. But it gives you the nicest, smoothest background, like you figure you can't get from markers. Now, I won't guarantee this will work on other markers. I don't have other markers. I have these Sharpies, but these Sharpies can be bought at almost any big store. Walmarts and Targets and business stores and everything. You can get Sharpies just about anywhere. Now look, can you see a difference between the quality of the messy one where I just did this and then one where I did tiny circles? Go this route. Now we're going to do another step yet where we actually put colored pencils over the top of this. So this makes a really good base for putting your colored pencils on. This is what will make it look more professional versus this. This does not look professional. This is someone that doesn't know how to handle their marker. So remember, tiny circles and a lot of patience. But remember, you're only doing this because you love to do art, so why hurry through it, right? So, let me move over to my picture. Now that I've outlined it and made my little barrier line from my black pen, I'm going to go in and fill it with tiny little circles. And yes, sometimes this takes a long time, but you'll be so much more pleased with your results. And you'll feel like, oh, I'm going to show this to other people, and they'll go, how did you get your markers looking so good? Even your cheap markers can look good using this method. In fact, I've found out of the ones, and I've tried some more expensive ones, these Sharpies are my favorite so far. If you use them right, you can do a lot with a Sharpie. Now look how good that looks. Now we're going to do one more, and then I'm going to speed it up. And by speed it up means it looks like my hands are moving really fast. And if you watch a lot of art videos, you'll think, my goodness, these people draw fast and they color fast. I can never do that. Well, they don't really do that. They do everything normal speed, but when we make our videos and we edit them, we can speed it way up so it looks like we're just flying. But the reason we do that is so you don't have to sit so long watching us. You can get to your own work. So I'm going to do another one here where I do this outline, and I'm going to fill it in, and then I'm going to finish my red colors on my petals, and I'll probably speed it up so that you don't have to take so long watching me, and you can do your own work. Okay, there here's my outline. Remember, little circles. And I mean tiny little circles, not big circles. Tiny, so you're going over and over that same area and you get a solid color. Now, I have a set of expensive markers. And if you try to do this with them, it doesn't work well at all. So, this will not work for every marker, but try it. It even helps with crayons. If you take your time and circle with your crayon, it will make a lot better, smoother color. But, as I say, it doesn't work with absolutely everything. You just have to experiment. And eventually you find what ones are your favorites. You might find another brand that you really like. There we go. Now, I'm going to finish this, but we'll speed it up here. Okay, you might have noticed that the picture disappeared for a second there. I ran out of memory on my camera, but you saw how to do it. We've now put in all of our red color and we're ready to do another color. So in this one, the first thing I did was put yellow in these little center petals. So let's do that next. Now, you'll notice if you have a pen that smears at all, it seems to do it the worst on a yellow pen. And this again is a Sharpie, and it's just a regular yellow color that they have in the basic set. So let's do one here, and then I'll speed through the rest of them. And because yellow is so touchy, I like to take a lot of time and be very careful and try not to go over my lines regardless of the pen, because it smears so badly, and then you have a dirty looking yellow in the middle, which isn't pretty at all. And then remember, do your little circles to fill it in nice and smoothly, just like we did our red. So I'm going to go ahead and finish those, but I'll speed this up for you so you don't have to sit through all of that. Oops, now I went over my line. Let me see if I can bring this up closer and you can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but see that yellow smeared this pen ink. Now, what's funny is the red didn't do that too much, but boy, the yellow will, and I just barely hit that line. And most likely, you're going to have that problem too, unless you buy some very expensive art pens. And unless we're making money on our art, most of us can't afford some of that. And you probably aren't either, since you're just learning how to draw. And that's okay. We just have to be more careful in how we use what we have. And even some of those will smear, so. Really, unless you're selling your art and you're making a piece that's going to hang on the wall for the next 100 years, buying the cheaper materials, there's nothing wrong with that. One of the main differences between your expensive materials and your cheaper ones is how long it takes before the picture fades and doesn't look so pretty anymore. And if it's hanging on a wall in sunlight, pictures can fade. And the better quality of materials like paint that you buy, the longer it takes before they fade in the light. But unless you're to that stage, and I'm sure not to that stage where I'm selling a lot of pictures to hang on the wall. Now, I might make some that hang on my wall, but I'm really not worried that it lasts 100 years or whatever. So I don't worry too much about having the most expensive art supplies. Now someday you may be a famous artist and you're selling to all kinds of people and putting in art galleries and all that, and you then will want to consider the really good, expensive stuff. And if you notice here, using yellow, I accidentally touched the red and it came over a little bit. Yellow, I love yellow, but it is not the easiest color to use without bringing in other smudges. Okay, oh, 2 more petals. And then we'll be done with this part. I have smeared several times, but we have another layer that we're going to put on top of this yellow. So most of those little smears won't even show. So we don't have to be too worried. All right. So I say that red part, if it took you less than half an hour to do that, you probably are working too fast. Now, I try to work a little fast because my battery power is limited and my camera is limited on how long my video can be. So I do have to be aware of how fast I work. But you take your time, all the time you need. There's no reason for you to hurry and then not do such a good job. Now, while I'm here and I have my yellow out, I'm going to go ahead and color my little center circles because I know I want to put some of that glitter on these, and I just want an underneath color so that if I don't cover it well, this would show through. Now, you may be doing something different or want to put a different color on yours, and so you may want to wait. But I know what I want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do this while my pen is out. Okay. Now we need to go back and get our red pen, and I want to just trace over these center lines with my red. It looks so much better than the black line. Now, do you notice I keep turning my piece of paper? All of us will have a way that, a direction of drawing where we control our pen or pencil better. It just has to do with our hands and the way we hold our pens, and we're all different. For me, for this kind of line, if I go this direction, bottom up, I do a better job. And there's nothing wrong with twisting your paper around to give yourself the best option for the best lines that you can make. There we go. All right, there's our flowers. Okay, it's time to do our green stem. Now, if you notice, while we're looking at this is pretty, but do you notice these flowers look a little different? It's the extra layer we're going to put on there that makes them look a little different. But we need to get our green. Now, green and Sharpies. This is interesting. And I didn't bring my other one with me. Let me get that real quick. The green you get in most Sharpie sets is this dark looking green. And that's what I used here. You see how dark this is. And it works, but it's dark. If you buy some of the other sets, like the neon sets and some of the spatial sets, they actually have a couple of other greens. And this is one of them. It's a brighter green. I don't know what they named it, but you see how bright this is in comparison. This is really the one I like best for making leaves because it's not so dark, and then when I want to make shadow lines and things on here, it shows up better. But you use whatever green you have. Either one will work. This is shows you why it's good if you watch out in the stores when they bring in extra sets, especially around Christmas time. you can pick up some other really good colors of Sharpies. So we just need to go in and color the stem and the leaves all the same color, and do this the same way we've done all the rest of our coloring. We just want to outline it and then use our tiny circles in the center to fill it. Now this will take just a few minutes, so again I'm going to speed this up so you don't have to wait so long for me to do it. But when you do it, take your time and be careful. Okay, there's our green laid down. Oh, I really like this brighter green better, don't you? It's hard to get these because it's really hard to find the sets that have the bright green. But I have noticed, actually, it's one of the pharmacies that sells pens in their office section, and I can buy these separately. So you might check around and see if there's some places that sell Sharpies by the pen instead of by the set. All right, now we're not done. I should say I'm not done. You may want to quit with this and say you're done because it's pretty. It's a neat drawing, just the way it is. But you can make it neater yet if we keep going. Now, can you tell the difference? Let's see if I can put this up closer and look at it. Do you see a difference in these two? The difference is in our next step. We need to add some shadows. We need to add highlights. And we need to add a background. So there's still quite a few more things that we need to do to our picture. But it just finishes them off so nice. So, if this is good enough for you, you can stop anytime you want and you will have done a wonderful picture. But if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how to use colored pencils for shading and chalks for backgrounds, stick with us. You can always turn this video off and come back later. You know, this has been a lot to do in one day, and you might want to rest your hands and come back another day. But let's just continue on, and I'll show you how to finish this off a little better yet.